Oh, hello, Amy, and
Hello.
hello to One Meditation Day participants. We are here together with Amy Edelstein, and this is our ongoing conversations with guests that have been coming to our One Meditation Day event. And so today we have Amy, and very appreciative of you being here, Amy, taking time out of your day, your busy schedule, not quite feeling the greatest either. So very appreciative of this.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the other thing I want to mention to you is, and to all the thousands of people who are going to be watching this, is Amy was the very first guest teacher we came to our One Meditation Day. I don't exactly know when it was, but we've been doing this 8 years, and we didn't invite guests right away, but you were the very first guest. And so you have a special place in all of our hearts.
I don't think I realized that I was the very first. What an honor.
Yeah, it was. I think because I think we were in Philadelphia then together, and we were working together with your inner strength. And so it was like, hey, Amy's here, let me ask her. And you said yes. So
Yeah.
very good. And you've been coming, gracing us with your presence every year, sometimes more than once a year. And so this has been ongoing. And it was a crazy, mad idea that we had back then, but you keep coming and these other people keep coming. So, and the new crazy, mad idea we have now is like, we just haven't thought, why don't we just kind of sit down and have a conversation with some of these people that are coming and just get to a very informal kind of chat, get to let everybody know a little bit who you are, what you're doing. I have all sorts of questions to ask you, because even though I spent a couple months every year down with you, I never really got down to sit with you and like sit down. And I remember one time at a kitchen table we did this, but now I have you as a captive audience, and I got you. So it's we're gonna go from here. So just to briefly introduce you to the One Meditation. Amy, well, she's been a teacher hosting retreats, a spiritual leader. She was part of a spiritual community for a number of years. And I think an author, but I think the big thing now is you are the co-founder, executive of the Inner Strength Education Foundation in Philadelphia, which I think 2014 that started. So it's ongoing. I think I read your newsletter, which you put out every month. I think you said you have 70 classes this fall.
A week.
70 classes a week. Yeah. 10 schools. And you had an amazing statistic there. 15,000 kids have gone through this program since 2014.
Yeah.
So that is incredible. Before we even get to that, I just wanted to add a few things, because I went on your website, because it's been a while, and I see that you have conscious classroom podcasts going on. I had a number of 30 some recordings, and I remember I wrote down a couple of the recordings that was so cool. Improving friendships, conscious endings, mindfulness, and how it can impact gun violence. There's just 3 of those. You also have an amazing inner strength library where you have meditation recordings and also recordings all about the teen brain, science, love, and kindness, and even a song list that students and whoever can come and listen to. And sort of the intention is to relax and expand your mind and be open. And lastly, I saw that you have a live Instagram, still ongoing, Fridays.
Yeah, two of the team members of the organization are doing
Doing
the
that.
Instagram lives. Yeah,
So,
I come on
yeah.
occasionally.
So this is just incredible, and I think of where.
We have a mobile app, Inner Strength Vibe. So we have a brand new mobile app, which is specially for teen mental wellness and mindful exploration. And it's free for download on the App Store and Google Play for all teenagers. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal. That is really cool. And so while we're chatting about this, maybe, I don't know if there's a little bit more you want to say about this. Just the inner strength.
Yeah,
It's such a wonderful program. So I want you to, yeah, go ahead.
so maybe just for some of the one meditation who just know me from sitting in silence, or who might come on, have come on more recently. I started my own meditation practice in 1978, and I spent the better part of my adult life pursuing different forms of meditation and transformative philosophies, writing about them, researching them, facilitating groups, being part of groups. As you mentioned, I was a founding member of a residential meditation community for where I was for 27 years. So that was a big experiment and a lot of decades, a lot of hours clocked on the cushion and in research and in writing. And so the inner strength, my writings have come out of that. My program has come out of that. My books have come out of that. Really the work with teenagers in Philadelphia is an expression of decades of exploration of how to facilitate human transformation. How do we bring out our best potentials, regardless of our circumstances, but taking into account our circumstances? Philadelphia has the very unfortunate reputation, or I don't know what to call it, this year of being the second in gun violence in country per capita, just after Chicago. The tragedy, and it's affecting more and more of our young people, including the young people in the classrooms that I work in. So this is a really serious issue. Obviously, it stems out of issues from the pandemic, being cooped up at home, lack of structure, lack of supports, home violence, gang violence to fill the void. But it's very alarming, and it's definitely felt. So we can't, meditation's not going to stop the guns. You got to get guns off the street. Let's be real about this.
Mm-hmm.
If a 10th grader can buy $100 handgun, then meditation's not going to stop that. But meditation is going to help students, their friends, and students who are affected, students who have friends in the hospital from injuries. It'll help cool down temperatures. And the program was really designed to release the higher potentials of students, as you know, which is why you were so excited about it, that it's not just trauma therapy, although it's a trauma sensitive program, and it's not just calm, although it is a program to help reduce youth anxiety, which is at an all-time high. There are just a lot of pressures on youth, and the digital technology stimulates the wrong kind of activity in the brain and exacerbates teens who are already, who may already be anxious. So this does help with all of that, but it was really designed to get students to have a methodology and a forum to ask life's big questions, to ask those questions that don't have answers. What's the difference between mind, thought, and awareness? What's our evolutionary heritage? Why do we respond the way we do? And what are some theories about early human brain development that explain why our amygdala does what it does. So getting them to really put their minds to those big questions in a big context and help them depersonalize the issues that they might be experiencing. When you have an open mind like that, it gives you the possibility to see your own experience in a different light. And that gives you the space and room to maneuver and solve very real problems. So that's what it was designed for. And I'm happy to say that, it was wonderful having you here. For those of you who don't know, Rick lives about 10 hours from where he would come. He would drive to Philadelphia and stay here for a couple weeks at a time. His lovely wife was willing to let him do that periodically. And he would teach in the classrooms. So he did our training, the inner strength training, and worked in the school system. So he knows firsthand the potential of the kids and the breakthroughs, and also some of the challenges. I'll tell you I had one fantastic homework assignment, this homework submission this week. This is a young woman who's a 12th grader. She only had 2 lessons so far. So 2 45-minute sessions. And we were talking about thought and awareness.
Mm.
And this is not something I said in class. So this is not her parroting back, but she wrote in her essay, she said that what she learned from class and as she was observing is that thoughts come and go, and that we can influence our thoughts. Our thoughts are not necessary, they're constructed. She didn't use the word constructed, but she said that we can manufacture our thoughts. But awareness is real because awareness is always there. Awareness doesn't come and go.
Amazing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You're making me memories come back as you're telling these stories. And I remember just mind blowing hearing some of the stuff coming out of their young minds, saying some tremendously wise, intuitive kind of things. And it's just like, whoa. And yeah, so I just want to say a big yes to that. And as you were talking about some of those topics, I was looking for the book. The new book, but I set it down away from me. But you have a list of, in that book, they help your lesson plans, and
Right.
you have a beautiful structured course for teachers to take who want to be involved in this, and you come together, I think online and in person, right? And you offer this training, which is tremendously powerful training, even to receive. And then we practice together as teachers. And so it's not like, if people are interested in this, you're not thrown in here with this. You have a very beautiful course that you give and offer. And so if anybody, has that
The
desire.
Teaching Inner Strength, the manual Teaching Inner Strength is available, but you really do need the course. And you can find it online at theconsciousclassroom.com. It's right now, it is available self-paced, and then I offer it with live sessions once a year. It's a 2-part training, and it's 80 hours in total. There's a lot of reading. It's a lot of work. Our final week is a 7-day immersion, and it really is an immersion where you practice teach through all 12 lessons and get a little bit more about systems thinking and systems theorists. And it's really, since COVID, we haven't done a group in person. And I suspect this year as well, when I do the live, it will also be online just because of COVID. It's so hard to plan, and we don't know what's going to happen for everyone's safety. So, but it's fantastic. Everyone comes out of the cohorts so deepened and inspired and open, prepared, and they've gone through a journey and a process of inquiry where you learn how to teach teens. Half of the people who do the teacher training are longtime meditators, and half of them are school teachers.
Mm.
So the school teachers have the classroom experience. They know classroom management. They know what it's like to be in a room with 30 teenagers who like this, and they won't answer you, which is really hard. And but the meditators have the depth of experience in the practice. And so it's always a very nice mix of what happens, because there's, in the teacher training, they're practice partners and you work with the same person over time
Mm.
and you share in discussion group. So it's very collaborative and supportive, and people really grow tremendously. It's so wonderful to see.
Amen. Yes. And you don't have to teach in Philadelphia too. That's the other big thing. If you're far away, you were willing to help people, and set this up in your community where you live in, and use this. So if anybody's just hearing this, like, yeah, you don't have to move to Philadelphia. But as I'm listening to you, I'm just, I'm getting so inspired again. Just,
Yeah.
but anyways, is there anything else that you would like to say about that?
Well, I think, initially I was very against using a lot of technology, because I really felt, I come from the old school. I spent 4 years in Asia studying
Mm.
Contemplative practice, and it's where you just go and you get, up close, as near as you can to those people you feel have the greatest wisdom, and you watch every move they make, you absorb it, you practice, and you ask questions, and you're that mentorship that happens in relationship was such a big part of my own deepening. And of course, I sought it out. You're always independent on your search and your process. You always have to make your own decisions and go and seek and practice. But I felt that the teens needed mentorship, that they
Mm.
desperately
Mm.
needed a role model of somebody who was mature, not in age, but in being and
Yes.
present, where they could, adults who could handle stress without falling apart, adults who could say, I don't know the answer, without any kind of defensiveness, because curiosity and not knowing and learning more is a cornerstone of an engaged, inquiring life. And I felt they also needed that reassurance of somebody who's with them, but not involved with them.
Mm.
Not your therapist, not your social worker, not your guidance counselor, not your teacher who's giving grades, but somebody who's there, who's going to teach you tools for self-reflection, and they're the same tools they use, and they can tell you from their own experience. They can walk around the class, they can notice, they can say, how you doing? You don't look so good. Did you get
Mm.
enough sleep? Anything going on? I had one student who was, I really liked her a lot, and she was, for a few weeks in a row, she was really not looking herself. And I would ask her, how's everything? You tired? No, everything's fine. And finally, I went to the classroom teacher. I said, will you check in on her? And something's going on. She doesn't look herself. And her teacher was an excellent teacher, very involved. And she asked her how she was, privately. And the girl's grandfather, who she was very close to, had gotten hit by a car and he was in the hospital.
Mm.
And she hadn't told anybody. And he did pass away, and she was having a really hard time with it. And she said, how did you notice? And her teacher was honest. She said, I didn't, the mindfulness teacher, Miss Amy noticed. And after that, I never said anything to her, but she looked at me, I looked at her. She knew that I knew that she knew.
Mm.
Nothing else needs to be said, but she brightened up after that because it was the first time she told anyone that she was really struggling with a loss of somebody very dear to her that happened very suddenly. You can't do that on Zoom because mostly the kids don't have their cameras on. You know, you're
Mm,
staring at little black boxes with like some kind of anime avatar and their name, and you've never met
yeah,
them.
yeah,
It's really hard to teach online.
yeah.
But I
Oh,
did I did bring in the mobile technology as well as a video program. And this year we created 24 theme-based slide decks to help students integrate back after being home during the pandemic, dealing with motivation, inspiration, grief and loss, friendship. So I just realized that we have to expand
mm.
modalities. Kids learn in different ways. And if we can get on their phone, it's in the palm of their hand pretty much all the time.
Yeah. That's such an incredibly beautiful story. And it just reminds me of an instance that I was with you in a class. And I remember you going up to a student at the end of the class because she had said something. And I think what you're pointing to here too, and she opened up to you. But I think what you're saying is you're a role model, and the teachers were a role model for somebody who really cared for these. And that is something like so many of these kids they don't have. And it's kind of an eye-opening. Oh my God, somebody really kind of cares about me. A so-called stranger actually is not caring about my grades, not caring about me as a human being. And you see that in them, and it's like they begin to have even a self-worth, that they're worth being cared about. And it's almost like your heart pours out because you feel like, oh my God, this is maybe one of the first times in their life where they sense this. And it's part of, like, when I think of your book Conscious Classroom, it's part of all the conscious classroom, what it can be. You're touching into the heart and soul of these kids, not just their reading, writing, and arithmetic or something. It's something very deeper to be. I think, as you said in your book, stewards, loving stewards as they go on in life. And I think this is a big part of what you do. That's incredibly
Right.
powerful.
Because these kids may have very loving families, but when, most
Mm,
of our kids are students of color, and and most of them come from families of low income or poverty, intergenerational poverty. The world is a very harsh place.
mm. The school
And
is too. Oh,
the school is a very harsh place. The world is a very harsh place. And, to call a spade, most white people in positions of authority
mm,
don't relate to those students' creative potential. They relate to stigma and stereotype and negative impressions gleaned from the media. So, the students are very much up against the amount of grit and resilience that these kids have is just extraordinary.
mm.
Because I think if,
Yes, they're
you
learning
know,
that. Yeah.
if we could put on, you know, if we did virtual reality and walk through the world through their eyes, you and I being, of the privileged class in America, I think that it would be just heartbreaking
Mm,
to experience the harshness that many of them encounter, and that, a loving family isn't enough to make a loving world. You need examples, like you said, of a stranger who relates to your enthusiasm, creative potential, your quirkiness, your inquiring mind that goes in all directions, your
yeah.
capacity to think outside of the box and to ask deep questions and to consider,
Yeah.
so, and to be taken seriously. Um, Our public, I'm a product of public school.
That's interesting.
I grew up in Pittsburgh. I went to high school of 2,000 kids.
I think I forgot, or I didn't know that or something. Wow. That's how you get back to, okay. Oh yeah, Pittsburgh, because your mom. Okay, you said Pittsburgh. Yeah, now I
Yeah.
remember. Okay.
So, I never thought about going. I mean, private school was something my family couldn't have afforded, and it wasn't done. Public school was where you got a good education or
Yeah.
a decent education. And, in the last 30 years, I mean, more than that, but particularly the last 30 years, we stopped investing in public education.
Mm.
And so the result has just been devastating on these, groups of kids who go through, because if they're under-resourced, then they don't have the opportunities to open their minds. And I'm not talking about high technology. 6% of Philadelphia schools have a working library.
Wow.
6%.
Wow.
And everybody
Yeah.
knows that reading and not, which is different. I know we have the internet, but reading books and being able to go into a library and explore different shelves and topics and feel like there's a wealth of knowledge that you can delve into yourself, not getting bounced off after you've read the first headline, is critical to complex thinking. So if you don't provide that for students, you're not developing that. I know it's far from meditation for our one meditation.
No, well, no, it's beautiful, but I don't want to stop you though, but I have this burning questions now. How did you, growing up in a public school, here it is, like, people look at, spiritual leaders and they think somehow you're different. You're not an ordinary person, but somehow an ordinary person has the courage to lead an extraordinary life. How did you, I mean, what did you have if I could go into this direction just a little bit with you?
Sure.
Did you have any experience when you're young or something that just sort of like took you? Because I even want to go a little bit into your travel to Nepal that maybe a lot of people don't know about. But did you have an experience early on in your life that sort of like shook you and impacted you and took you in another direction to a extraordinary life, I would say?
Well, I was always a seeker. Like
Why? If I what did that? Why?
Karma, probably.
Oh, okay.
But usually I would trace back to I used to trace back to when I was 8. But I realized actually I have memories of when I was about 3, where maybe other people have these memories too, but this really stayed with me. When I was 3, we lived, my dad had just gotten out of graduate school, and we lived in this little apartment, and there was a path up to, it was like a duplex, and we lived on the upper floor of a duplex. There was a little path, and there were pansies planted along the side of the path. And I was still in nursery school. And I remember there were certain ones where I would look into the, pansies have these marks that look like faces. And there were certain ones, not all the flowers talked, but I would look into their faces and I would talk to them. And they would talk back.
Mm.
And there was something I had these very serious interchanges with certain ones of them. And I have vivid memories of it. I don't have any photos of it, but I have vivid memories of it. And then when I was 8, my father was a physicist and he was on sabbatical in Israel, and we went to Israel for a year. And we were really secular Jews. We weren't religious. I was raised with Christmas trees, and I didn't learn anything until I went to Israel about Judaism. But when we were at certain ruins that were, from, I think, like 73 CE. So, just after the turn of the Common Era. And I knew where things were. So there was an archaeologist guy taking us around, and I was running around, and my brother was 2 years older than me. My sister was very small, but I remembered where things were. And I picked up the language very quickly. I felt very at home there. And I felt that's when I really started asking questions about life and death. I kept a diary, and I had a pet parakeet that died, and I wrote all about my pet parakeet. But I was questioning what death was. I was writing all about what death was, and I really felt
How old were you now or then?
8.
Whoa. Okay.
And I was writing, and I had this when I was older, so it wasn't just my
Yeah.
memory, that I didn't think that death was the end. I had this sense of continuity, but not continuity in an individual way. Like I didn't think my little pet parakeet, lived onward, little blue Tukey. That's his name. And so, I was already thinking about things. When I was in high school, it was the 70s, so we were all very cynical post Watergate, but I went to a sort of liberal congregation that didn't have a rabbi, so sometimes I led services when I was in high school. It was a Reconstruction congregation, and I went to an alternative Hebrew high school in the evenings, and with these 5 girls, and we debated, what ethics were, what morals were, and I had very powerful non-dual experience during that time.
Could you say something? Yeah, go ahead.
I was, I'm pretty sure that it was at my bat mitzvah, which is a ceremony where you read from the Torah and you become in a religious sense, an adult responsible to the community and for the community. And there's one prayer that's really, it had a really beautiful melody, and we were chanting it. And I was sitting up looking out at, there are about 60 people. It was a small congregation, very informal. And I was looking out at everyone, and the chant in Hebrew was talking about how, God is one and God's name is one. And you chant it towards, it's an I thou relationship. So you chant it towards, and I was sitting there looking out at everyone, and everything just dissolved. And I was like, but of course everything's one. And I really had this moment where the veils parted in a very definitive way. And the idea of an I thou relationship, or of, in that way of being a supplicant towards the one, made no sense to me, because everything was one. There wasn't two. There weren't two. There couldn't be two. So I was about 13 then.
Wow.
And then in high school, of course, it was the 70s.
Where did you go with that though? Were you able to talk to people about this and
I don't
share?
think so, no.
Okay. All right. Huh. That's interesting too.
Yeah, I don't think so, but oh, sorry.
That's right.
I knew that.
Live.
Yeah, I know. I thought I turned it off. Yeah. It was the 70s. So we listened to progressive rock, which was all about these spiritual events and, going places, and, drug experimentation, with that. So that was all a part of my high school years. And that's when I learned to meditate. I found a couple books, and I had Richard Hittleman's 28-Day Guide to Yoga. He was a student of Ramana Maharshi's. He had a deep non-dual realization, but he was popularizing yoga in LA with a TV show and a book. But I felt something in it. And he had this yoga plan, and then you meditated staring at a candle flame and did stuff like that. But but I really got something from it. And then I read Autobiography of a Yogi and Ram Dass Be Here Now. Those were the three books that I think really catalyzed the sense that I was going to meditate. I was practicing, I was trying, I was learning more about Judaism, I was learning about, Jewish contemplation. But I think those three books really, they came from three different angles. And I knew at that point, my best friend in high school and I made a pact that we would go to Nepal together, or we both made a pact, we would go to Nepal, not necessarily together, but we would do it. And in 1983, I went to Asia, and then I spent 4 years, mostly in India.
By yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You went by yourself. And you were like college age?
I was 20. Yeah.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of a natural kind of progression from everything you were reading and experiencing, everything you thought, I need to go over there and dive deeper into this. Is that kind of the feeling?
I went to college. I went to Cornell. I studied regional development, political science, and educational theory because I really wanted to figure out how do you build the structures of culture. And I had my favorite class was on civil liberties and civil disobedience, where we were a seminar of 12 people and we argued some famous Supreme Court cases. And the one that we got to choose out of like 20 of them. And the one that I chose was about the Hare Krishnas. Did they have the right to indoctrinate? Was it free speech or not? Which was a very tricky one, actually. I wasn't necessarily on their side. But that kind of question of, well, what structures facilitate cultural betterment or the emergence of our higher capacities? Because our culture shapes us. We're in a container, we're in a framework. And that's what I'm trying to do with Inner Strength, is build a framework that facilitates the development of our better and higher capacities.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so that was what I did in college. I didn't finish.
Because of the trip to Nepal, they cut college a little bit.
Yeah, I was taking a junior year abroad. I was supposed to go to Japan, but I ended up going to Nepal first. I did a 10-day Tibetan Buddhist course. I walked in the mountains. Then I went to India, and I spent most of my next few years in India.
So this was several year kind of a trek.
4 years, yeah.
4-year trek, yeah. Wow. And I have a sense now, I could feel that this was never kind of a personal enlightenment thing. I could just feel how you were saying in your college and everything. This was always about cultural and how we could bring this in the culture, which is sometimes a little different than how people get on the path, and more of a personal enlightenment.
Yeah.
But I could feel how that's moving you that way.
That was always my interest. I wanted wisdom because you needed wisdom to do the other. But what I was interested in was really how do we create a world that's happy?
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah. How do we do that? So the inner exploration is the part, is a part of it. That's the foundation. Because if we
now, was that a little bit of the Nepal trip kind of more of an inner exploration, or was it both?
It was everything. It was everything.
India.
Yeah, I just wrote a book called Adventure in Zanskar.
Yes, please talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
I'm super excited about it. It's live right now. It kind of officially launches in a couple days, and then the real launch date is on the 20th. So this month of November.
We don't know about this. Is this open to others, or? How
Yeah,
can we, where, I didn't even know about this, so I missed this somehow. How,
that's
what?
okay. I haven't done anything. I've been too busy with my program, but uh, it's on Amazon. And I will also share review. I'm inviting people to join a review team where they get to read the book and then and write a review on Amazon to whatever they authentically think, and they don't have to finish the book, their initial impressions. And then as my thanks, I'll do a workshop on the book and on what it means to write your
Yeah.
journey. How do you
So
write?
just, I'm not really clear on this. Is this open to,
Open.
open? So if we have that, we could put it on one meditation there for everybody and they could, yeah, I'd love to do that
Totally.
and see where that sounds
Yeah.
really interesting. I can't wait to
Yeah.
hear about that. Wow.
I don't think I have a proof copy of the book, so I can flash the cover, but I'll send you the real cover so you could see
We could
it.
put that up on our
Yeah,
little notice, everybody. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Mano is
Um,
very good with that. She with the design, she'll just put that up and no problem. Send it out to
awesome.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So the book is about a 2-month trek that I did in the westernmost corner of the Tibetan Plateau. Sorry again.
Where's
Hopefully you can cut that out.
it's not no worries. It's this is just sitting in the living room with Amy Edelstein having a
Right.
conversation.
Amy Edelstein with Jeff Carrera trying to call her.
Oh, that guy. He's always getting in the
Exactly.
way.
I know. He just finished his retreat day, so he's calling probably to tell me about it. He
Yeah.
happens to be away. I'm in Philadelphia right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, a lot of us are taking his 4-day retreat right now. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah, very cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Adventure in Zanskar it's a 2-month sort of it was over 500-kilometer walk through the mountains. It's the highest valley in the world. The valley floor is 3,000 meters, and then you go up. So the highest elevation I went is over 5,000 meters, over 16,000 feet for American hikers. So it's pretty darn high with no
There it
equipment.
is. Whoa.
Um,
Well,
and
I don't want to take too much time, but like, how did you plan this out? Did you know where you were going to sleep at night? Did you have any? Wow, Amy, that's pretty impressive.
had a map. I had an
As
Indian Army
a
map.
young 20-year-old, 21, whatever you
I
were,
was 21 at the
one
time. Yeah,
woman doing this on her own.
yeah.
Whoa, yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, what was moving you to do this? That's even, yeah.
Well, the Zanskar is the oldest Buddhist valley in the world. They believe that Zanskar became Buddhist in the 2nd century CE and has been Buddhist continuously since. So it became Buddhist before Tibet. And they're Tibetan people and they practice a Tibetan Buddhism now, but they also have an older form of Buddhism. And they have a form of enlightenment teachings called Bon, from the Bon religion, which is earlier than Buddhism, but also has meditation and methodology. So yeah, so that is, so the I was just wondering if I could turn off my ringer so he doesn't, if I could put it on airplane mode, if that'll help. Sorry. So I went walking and I spoke a little bit of Tibetan and I spoke Hindi, some Hindi and a little Nepali and a little Urdu. And so it's a story. It was really a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual place. And, I was walking through my mind. I was really trying to apply the teachings that I was learning on retreat because I'd already done a couple of retreats at that point and I wanted to practice. And what I found was just amazing. And I kept a diary at the time. And in all of my moves, I always wrote from the time I was very young, but at a certain point, I chucked everything. which I'm sorry I did, but I kept everything, including all of
Yeah,
my journals with other
that's
teachers.
youth.
Yeah.
That's youth, right? We do that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, notes from retreats. But the one thing I kept were my 2 Indian copybooks from this trip. I always felt like
Hmm,
I needed to write this story.
that's
And
interesting.
during the pandemic, I felt like it was time. And so I did it. And it really is about, what I found there was a valley which had only been open to the West for 7 years because it's a geopolitical hotbed. It's
Hmm.
this little corner of North India, and it's part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is half Muslim, half Hindu, which is always in conflict. And then it touches with Pakistan. Afghanistan comes right over the top. There's like a little bit of Pakistan, then Afghanistan. Then there's Russia influence with Tajikistan. And then
Hmm.
there's China
Wow.
and Tibet. And then there's this little spot of this Buddhist valley.
Wow.
So it was closed to tourists or casual travelers until 1976, because that's where
Wow.
military spies go and
Ah.
all kinds of stuff happen. So it had been really untouched. And when I went, what I felt was this amazing harmony. People were really living the Buddhist teachings of equanimity,
Hmm.
non-attachment, generosity, selflessness, uh, long-term understanding of long-term consequence of your actions. So
It
you
was a part of the culture,
it
you
was
say.
deep, deep. It was the fabric of the way they lived.
Wow.
I've never been anywhere, and I've been to, I spent a lot of time in remote villages in other parts of the Himalayas, in Uttar Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, but Zanskar was just a magical place. It was
Hmm.
really like heaven on earth. People were so happy
Wow.
and so
How do we
full.
make people happy?
They were beautiful. And it just touched me so deeply.
Hmm.
I'm very sad to say that in the decades since, they've built roads, there are cell phone towers, and the
Hmm.
culture has really crumbled because of materialism. Um, it's really, I watched some contemporary documentaries to see, yeah, and so my time there in this book, Adventure in Zanskar, is a real window into a culture, a magical culture
Hmm.
that existed in our lifetime, but has been eroded. But the principles are there. And really, part of the book is cultural commentary. And at the time, one of my struggles was I'm one of those tourists bringing Westernization just by my
Hmm.
being, even though, I was simple, I had simple gear, I didn't have an entourage and all of that. But I knew that I was very conflicted because, on one hand, by being there, I was being touched in a way that was going to change my life. And on the other hand, I was concerned about the footprint that
You
my
were leaving.
Westernization was going to leave.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a
So
little
that's
bit
all
of
in the book.
insight into your own soul there too.
Yeah.
How you're always looking to see how you're impacting, not just, yeah, that's beautiful. But how you said it so impacted you. I mean, I could get a feel a little bit of that kind of life and that happiness and that joy that I was living in, and that, like you said, non-equanimity. And you saw that, and somehow that, it's my sense is it became more real, real possibility for you, even possibly. But like, if you
Exactly.
were going to say something, what was the biggest impact of that whole trip that for you? What would you say that was?
Joy, actual
Oh
joy.
wow.
Like you could have deep joy
Hmm.
as a culture, not just as a person.
Wow.
And it comes from non-attachment.
Wow.
There was one day where I was walking in these couple horsemen were going the same way as I was. They had 3 horses, and they offered to put my pack on one of the horses. And so we were walking, and at one point I was walking ahead with one of the men, and we had 2 of the horses with us. And no, we had one of the horses, and the other guy had 2 horses. And there was a certain point, after a few hours, we couldn't see him anymore. He'd gotten way far behind. So we stopped, made tea, and waited for him. We waited a couple hours,
Hmm.
and he came, and he was missing a horse. But I couldn't tell what was going on because his face looked okay. And I thought, wow, well, maybe they met other people and he gave his horse to somebody else and went a different way, because they were carrying these horses they were pack horses, and they were bringing them somewhere. And it turned out that the horse had spooked and had jumped off the edge of the cliff and died.
Wow, wow,
And it
wow.
was the horse that had my pack on it.
Oh,
And he had to climb down this
oh
ledge
my gosh.
by this like raging river to get, my pack and the other gear that the horse was carrying, and then load it on the other horse and carry some of it back. Now, the thing was, like, a horse is a really valuable commodity, and it's a big deal. These people don't have very much, and to lose a horse is a huge deal. But I couldn't tell on his face what happened. And then, he was telling his friend, he was very animated. And then basically, I was able to piece it together, and then I was able to ask him questions to make sure I understood. And I got the whole story. But there wasn't a flash of anger, because my guess is what happened, that my smell was foreign, and maybe the horse
Mhm.
spooked because of my pack. Could have been something else, but that happens. I didn't smell, there's a certain smell, that goes with the diet and goes with the clothing, the yak hair clothing. And I had foreign materials. I had a Thinsulite pad, and I had a nylon backpack. It wasn't common then. But there wasn't any blame. There wasn't any guilt. There wasn't any regret. There wasn't any anger. I mean, I'll tell you, the kind of road rage I see in Philadelphia when
I
somebody
know what
cuts
you're saying.
somebody off,
Yeah,
and they're 3 seconds later than they would have been,
yeah.
because this car moved in front of them. But the invectives, and, there have even been, incidents of violence and gunshot just because of road rage. And this guy lost his livelihood, and he was just even. Life comes, life goes. We're not going to live forever. Everything falls through our hands. We hold everything loosely. We're caretakers, we're grateful, but we're not attached. And it was just so, his demeanor, his equanimity, just as a natural expression or response, was so moving.
Hmm.
And that kind of thing, you go, okay, these are just normal people. These aren't like enlightened masters who've done like billions of hours of meditation and teachings. And these are just ordinary people. But that's the level of Buddhist teaching that they had, if it was just a part of the fabric of culture. And then I was like, it was so special. And every day was something like that. Every day was magic. Every day I was learning what I had studied on retreat by being with these people and being around them and seeing them and then observing my own mind and seeing my own grasping and frustration and petty mindedness and, desire for
That living
achievement.
embodiment of that kind of love and care,
Yeah.
just natural. How, as you even tell that story, I'm just feeling it. What would a culture be like if that's what would even the kids in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
what could be, what you're saying, what could be, what you saw, what could be. And it was just this living embodiment that that touches the very souls of what it is to be a human being, that we don't know it was possible. And then you realize it's not only possible, it's the only thing that makes sense. And wow, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel very privileged and grateful that I had that opportunity. And I think that's why I always felt this needed to be shared, not just because it's my story. It is an inspiring story for people who want to have an,
It's very inspiring. Yeah.
but it's more, so people can see through my eyes
Yes.
and share that beauty and hope and possibility. Yeah, that we really can actually do something different than we're doing right now. We really can. It's not that hard. We don't have to be that special.
That is just what you just transmitted in that story.
Mm.
We saw that story through your eyes, and we realized that possibility. Wow. To be models of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have so many other questions, but I think that's just the perfect place. I don't know,
Yeah.
the way that was. There's something magical in just what you just shared, that from your heart and soul, that you just transmitted to us all. And so,
Fabulous. Well, wonderful. And I look forward to meditating with everyone.
January, whatever that's, I think
Whatever date it is,
we'll find out. Yeah, we'll
we'll
make it.
be there. And yeah, thank you
Thank you,
for,
Amy. And again, you go to your website for donations for your inner strength.
yes,
You
please.
need all the help you can get. This vision. It can't be a single person vision. It has to
No,
be, yeah. And that's you touched us with that. And thank you. And your book, let me know a little bit more how we can get that out. And
absolutely. Innerstrengtheducation.org is the website, and donations are very welcome. Any size, whatever you feel moved, it really goes a long way. And, we're able to catalyze a lot. And now that we're mobile, spread it to other cities. So we're keeping the app free. There's no paywall. Teens don't have credit cards everywhere, and they need these tools, and they need that hope behind the tools, because our work is definitely infused by that. And Adventure in Zanskar, I'll give you, it's on Amazon, and it's literally like just squeaking out. It's like barely new in the world. And yeah, please,
I
it's a
can't
great
wait to read
Christmas
it.
gift. Yeah.
That is a wonderful idea. Christmas good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank
What a
you.
joy it
Pleasure.
was to hear you, see you, sense your whole kind of being with us today and sharing that, transmitting that to us all. And
Sending love to everyone. Everyone, please take care of your health, take care of your spirits, take care of each other, and we will make it through this challenging patch.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.